Hey, Audacious Beast, welcome back to my channel. My name is Scottyallenday. Where is all of this entitlement coming from? Is a large population of entitled people bad or is it good? Is there a way to reverse this entitlement addiction? Who started this or what started it? Well, I'm going to talk about that in my video today. So we're going to start it off probably back when I figured that most of this entitlement started, and then we're going to try and create some kind of a timeline. So follow through with me on this video, because you know, you could drop a comment if you see something or hear something that I've said that makes you understand this a little bit more, or just listen to the video. So back in the 70s, actually back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, most of these people that we called Karens and Kevins were basically had another type of name. And we called them stuck up. I'm going by my notes here. Snobs, preppy, yuppies, snobs, or just plain spoiled rotten. So basically, 70s, 80s, and 90s, if you were one of these, anybody that was entitled, you would be from a household that was considered rich. You would have a mom and dad that had money. They would go and buy you everything. They would get you everything that you want. You got to do whatever you want to do. I mean, you take a plane ride on a weekend to go to France for a baguette and fly back on a 3-day weekend. I had a friend that actually did that. So that's pretty much what we called them. They were entitled. They had money. Everything was handed to them. I mean, it was also called silver spooning. Silver spooning was a kid would finish up high school, and their parents would pay for everything all the way through college, and they would still have a bank account, and they didn't have to work while they were in college. And when they got out, they were completely zero, not debt free. That was what you called a silver spoon. So, with this in mind, let's go through how I think this entitlement addiction, and I don't call it a epidemic or a crisis or a pandemic or anything like that. It's just an addiction. I figured that most of this started in probably about the early 80s, when I noticed while I was staying over at my grandmother's house. My grandmother and grandfather had a huge farm. They grew everything and anything that you imagine, mostly hazelnuts and prunes. So the paper came in, and I always like to open the paper and read the funnies. And most of the time, the funnies was in the living section. The living section would always have, you know, advice columns, psychologists and therapists and that sort of thing would post articles if the editor approved it. So we ran across this one day that a therapist says punishing your child could create major problems in the future. You know, like they'll be mean, they'll end up in jail, that sort of thing. So, and my grandmother and I talked about it. And then we like, if you don't put a kid in a corner to make them think about it, and then have them come over and talk to you about it, how are they supposed to learn right from wrong? Or if you give them a good whooping if they're out of hand. That's pretty much called corporal punishment. And I said, well, I don't like a good whooping, but well, you stay out of trouble, you don't get a whooping. I said, yeah, that's true. So, as the years progressed, we kept seeing child psychologists, even Dr. Phil, talking about punishing kids. Now, this just progressed slowly, and then they started talking about, you know, The TV is your child's babysitter. Video games is your child's babysitter. That sort of thing as the years progressed. Now, once I started watching how people have changed over the years. Now, nothing really changed while I was in high school. We went out dancing. We were outside until the sun came down. We made things. We built things. We fixed things ourselves. We repaired things ourselves. I saved allowance for 9 months to buy myself a Sony boombox. 9 months. I kept that boombox for, oh God, I think I kept that for like 15 years till it finally broke. So we had to earn things. We wanted to go to a concert, we had to earn it. Some kids got their allowance handed to them. We had to work for our allowance. We had to mow the lawn. We had to wash the car. We had to take the garbage out. We had to clean up after the dog. I had a blind and autistic brother. We had to clean up after my blind and autistic brother. We had to vacuum the floor, mop the floor, and do the dishes. All that sort of thing to earn an allowance. Now today, most kids don't even do that. They don't even do that to earn an allowance. They just get handed it to them. If they want an iPhone, they say, Mom, Dad, can we get an iPhone? And they give them an iPhone. So the thing is I'm jumping too far ahead of me, so let's go about into the 90s. And that's pretty much where helicopter parenting, snowboard parenting, lawnmower parenting, snowblower parenting, whatever you want to call it, started happening. And parents started blaming teachers that their kids were failing because they weren't working hard enough, and half the work these parents were doing themselves and getting wrong. And they kind of proved that. One school kind of proved that. There was over in someplace in Massachusetts that a school got tired of parents putting the blame on the teachers and putting the teachers down and teachers quitting, and they couldn't keep staff on board. So they said, you know what? We're gonna do an assignment. We're gonna put this entire assignment together, and then we're going to have the parents, we're going to send it home with the kid, and then we're going to have the kid do it in class the next day, and then we're going to see if the answers are right. They did it, and 80% of the papers that were turned in and the papers that were graded in school were totally opposite. And they knew it wasn't the kid. They had 20% of the kids that did their work themselves. So, what did the teacher do? The teacher failed them. The teacher failed like 60% of the parents. And half the kids passed. And everybody started figuring out, well, everybody knows now that you send homework home with the kid, the parents are going to do it for them. Why? Because they want the kids to pass the class. They don't want anybody to be held back. And they don't want the kids to be held accountable for not studying. So, that's where this is all coming from, because now entitlement is starting to grow. The kid comes home, hands the homework to the kids, to the parents, and then goes and plays the PS5 or watches TikToks. So, that's where the entitlement starts. And then every time somebody wants something, there you got it. When Nike started to go into full bore, people absolutely had to have the sneakers. When a pair of $20 sneakers in the 80s and 90s were just as good as a pair of $215 Nikes. So, if not better. So, the entitlement starts to grow. Now, the kids aren't seeing it, the parents aren't seeing it because it hasn't even gotten close to its peak. Because you got another generation that's going to come in right behind them. Now, these kids are learning from the parents all this stuff that's entitlement and everything's being handed to them. And these parents start working, and then they say, oh, you know what, I got to absolutely do this for the kid. The kid does nothing. Or to hire a nanny. If they want $100 for an allowance, they hand them a $100 bill. Geez, I would kill to have a $100 bill. I'd go to every concert that came into town. But that's what's happening. And then now these entitled kids are becoming entitled teens, entitled adults. And, well, you have an entitled adult, they don't believe they could ever be arrested because mommy and daddy always bailed them out. They believe they could walk into a store and grab anything they want and walk out because all they're going to do is get slapped on the wrist. And the entitlement keeps growing. And the problem is it's an addiction. So once the entitlement reaches its peak, you start creating more. Now the problem is, what would happen if, let's say, 80% of the U.S. becomes so entitled, nobody wants to do nothing? Well, we could have a third world country come in and invade us and take over the whole entire country and make it their own. And boom, that's it. But that's only a scenario. But now we need to focus on how to reverse this entitlement addiction and try and get an even playing ground. If you're that entitled to where you don't think anything goes for you, well, they need to teach them, well, you're going to have to work and earn everything that you've got. How are we going to do that? I have no clue. Can it be fixed? You can, but it's going to take a kingdom to fix it. So I just wanted to get that out. Get that off my mind. So I just pretty much got everything that's on this list. But what fueled the fire was when people changed the words of stuck-up, snobs, preppy, yuppie snobs, spoiled rotten, jet-setters, that sort of thing, into just a name of Karen and Kevin. You just gave them a weekend pass. You gave them a name. You give them a society name. Instead of saying, man, you're spoiled rotten. Or just leaving it. How'd you get so entitled? You know. But they give him a name. Well, most of these people's names really Karen and Kevin. No, they're not. You're just giving them a name, and they know what it's all about. And they're going, but if you call them a spoiled rotten brat, well, there you go. Nobody wants to be called rotten. Oh, but that's bullying. Okay. But that's all I have on my mind for right now about this entitlement stuff. Leave me a comment in the comment section below. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss another video. And until next time, keep on rocking.